Well, the McDonald's All-American game rosters were announced last week, and Simeon Wilcher was left off. Why does Ronald McDonald hate our guy?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it is Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Welcome in to the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me today is our guy, Jason Jordan. We want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Coming up on the show, we're going to check in on both Simeon Wilcher and Zayden High, how their senior years are going. We're also going to talk about some things that I would like to see the Tar Heels do down the stretch to prep themselves for the postseason. But before we get to that, we want to talk about Simeon Wilcher not making the McDonald's All-American game. Was it a snub? Was it not? That's why Jason's here to help us unpack that. As a reminder, every time we have Jason Jordan on, it's brought to us by LinkedIn Jobs, which I'd like to thank LinkedIn for being the official college basketball recruiting sponsor across the Locked On network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Jason, last week, the McDonald's All-American rosters roll out. I think a lot of Tar Heel people were expecting maybe to see Simeon Wilcher and others, maybe not. And so just right out of the gate, my question to you is, why does Ray Kroc and Ronald McDonald and the Hamburglar and everyone else associated with the Golden Arches hate our guy Simeon Wilcher?
I think he eats a lot of Chick-fil-A. It's pretty clear. You know, that's pretty obvious. The Chick-fil-A needs to talk about what the question is, why does Chick-fil-A have an all
Yes. Hey, let's get that going. I love it. I'm going there for dinner tonight, for crying out loud.
There you go. There you go.
To him while I'm there.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A never misses. I'm not mad. I definitely think he's on a short list, and I do mean short, maybe 2-3 guys long, that could make a stronger case for certain guys on the McDonald's team. And he, so that would definitely qualify him in the snub category. I thought he should have made the game, based off his summer and, on into his high school season. So he's been strong in both regards. And I feel like he's ascended over the spring and summer, and even now playing with Big Mac. So yeah, no pun intended. So yeah, I definitely think he was definitely he was probably likely surprised that he didn't make it. I would say that.
So if you, Jason Jordan, you were putting these rosters together, are you saying you would have had him on one of the two? I mean, probably the East, since that's where he lives.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, obviously he didn't make it. Make the case for me, because obviously we do these things. We always find a way to spin whatever. So if you're the selection committee, make a case for me as to why he didn't make this roster.
Well, I think they wanted. How can I say this with them being nice? I think they wanted certain people to be on the sideline at this game. Is what I think. And I'm not saying it's true. Not saying that I heard this, or I'm not saying I didn't hear. I'm just saying, I think they wanted certain people to be on the sideline. I think they wanted certain fanfare at this event. And I think they got it. And I think they're fine with that. So.
Listen, I don't mind saying names. They want LeBron James hanging out watching Bronny on the sideline.
LeBron coming? Okay, I didn't know if he was gonna make it. Okay, well, hey,
So, Jason, I've said the name. We'll let you continue on in the anonymity of it, so that I know you've got interests you've got to protect, and I hear that. But let's just, in a world where there is a certain player that the McDonald's Corporation would like to see on the sideline, along with the entourage that comes along with that, is is such a player a better basketball player right now than Simeon Wilcher?
No. I don't think anybody would say that. I mean, here's the thing. And this is why I'm big on what did you do? Because I'm not a fortune teller, So if you can make that argument. You could be like, well, no, he's a better prospect. I mean, look at him. He's got the stature. He looks good in drills. He got the instincts. He's got the pedigree. You can make that case, right? Because you're like, oh, Simeon's not like LeBron in high school. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Sure. So if you're doing so, then because I know that people do that and that's how they justify things, they'll be like, yeah, but we project him to be this. And then they don't come back in 3 years and say, my projection sucked. It was terrible. I was wrong. I'm just horrible. They hope you forget. And you do forget because people's attention span is 2 days. The news cycle is 2 days, right? So 3 years, certainly you're like, oh, you're so petty bringing up old things. I'm on to the next class. So that's an easy way to get out of it. The way you don't get out of it is to go by what they actually did against elite prospects, right? So let's talk about the Peach Jam.
Okay,
right?
Let's talk about it.
Well, Simeon was a co-MVP of the Peach Jam, averaging 19, 5, and 5. Now, we all say, and I had this conversation this week 3 times with an NBA scout, with multiple recruiting guys that cover Peach Jam and EYBL. And I say that because they're the best. This period. Sorry, Adidas. Sorry, I know. So we said that Peach Jam is the greatest most talented laden tournament in the summer. It is not even close. I'm talking about on planet Earth at that age group. That is the tournament. And nobody will disagree with that. Nobody ever will disagree with that. So he averages he dominated Peach Jam. Simeon dominated Peach Jam. Caleb Foster dominated. He averaged like 30. Like over like 5 games, he's averaging like 30. I mean, come on. Like, respectfully, Bronny wasn't in Peach Jam. He was in Peach Invitational.
That's right.
I'm not trying to be funny. Don't get it twisted. They were just in the same gym, but it's the B-level tournament. I'm sorry, people. I know that hurts to hear. And so that means he didn't play against as good a competition. Now, he had a good game. I think he had like 25 in a night game. I remember it. But it was his overall performance was, I would say, solid. But I think he's a solid player, so I expect solid. Star, one of the 24? No, not in my opinion. No, I think Simeon should be upset. I think Caleb Foster should be upset. And I think Layden Blocker should be upset. Those 3 guys should be upset. If I'm talking top 3, those are my top 3. They should legitimately be upset.
Well, let's invite them to our Chick-fil-A Invitational. Jason, we got it going?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here for that.
Waffle sandwiches at halftime and all of that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's one thing to say, I would have included him on a roster. It's another thing if we actually do it, because that means you got to take somebody out that made it. Obviously, we're talking Bronny James is an obvious way to do that, but he's on the West Coast roster. And I know we're trying to keep this at least somewhat geographically sound. Mm-hmm. So as we look at the East roster, is there somebody perhaps that we could switch out Simeon Wilcher for? And I'm not asking you to besmirch any of these young men. They're all phenomenal basketball players. But when we look at the East roster, which, by the way, includes his own high school teammate, Mackenzie Mbako, right? Is there a certain player that you would switch him out for? Or is it just like, listen, I don't know who it would be, but I would have Simeon on that roster?
I'm looking at it. It's tough to say because like by the way, I don't know who does the geographical locations of these rosters, but a lot of them are certainly not on the East. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how we're doing that. Hard to say. I mean, Bronny was my easy pick.
Well, let's go with it. I mean, if we're not too tied into geographical whatever, then let's just say Bronny and be done with it.
Bronny, potentially Marco Jackson. But I think he had a pretty strong case too. But if I had to take one off the East, I probably would go that route. I thought Stephen Castle had an amazing spring and summer too. So, but but both of those guys were deserving, but I think we take
We're
Bronny.
nitpicking. Right.
If we're nitpicking, all right, I think we got to take Bronny.
Oh man, and what a difficult locker room moment that is to go see your high school teammate Mackenzie and be like, bro, you made it. I did. Like, how do you?
This is my thing, and I hate to harp on Bronny because be clear. Like, I think Bronny has gotten a lot better. I think he definitely has a bright future ahead. Hopefully, they let him go at his own pace because I think that's the best way that he's gonna achieve. I don't think they will, but I would love for that to be the case. That said, he's just not one of the 24. And here's the question, and then I'm gonna drop the mic. I don't have a mic, but it's invisible. Okay, I'm holding it. If that was Brian Johnson, not Bronny James, and all things are similar other than the fact that his dad is not LeBron, we wouldn't even know who he, like, and I'm there. See, did you see it drop? Okay. It's like
it crashed. It made all the noises.
Come on. I mean, knock it off. Like, we'd be like, oh, my man, Zero's good. Like, I like him. Yeah, he'd be a good piece. But we're not saying we can't wait to see him in Houston.
Yep.
So I get the frustration. Some people were very frustrated with that on social media. A lot of people, where I talked about this too, where, star kids in the past, they get hate. Bronny doesn't get a lot of hate. A lot of people love Bronny. And I mean, because he's so quiet, because he can't talk. They don't allow him to talk. So, I think it's because I think that has served him well to have a lot of positive interactions with fans. Like, they don't know his personality. They don't know anything really about him. And I'm not mad at that, as a father. But to some degree, if we want this lifestyle and we want, to play together, and some of this is not going to be able to be controlled. And he's getting to the age where I'm so curious how they're going to do it at McDonald's, because it's, it'll probably be like they did with Zion, where they kind of keep him close to the vest and they don't let people talk to him. But it'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be a circus now. It'll definitely be a circus. McDonald's is going to be absolute. And he's the only undecided prospect in the game.
That's right.
Whew, man. God bless.
Well, it will be an interesting circus at the McDonald's All-American game for sure, but it will not include Simeon Wilcher, who you and I, Jason, both think should be there. Yeah. Now, Simeon is having a great senior year, as is Carolina's other commit in the class of 2023, Zayden High. We want to unpack both of those guys' senior years, how they're doing. Jason's going to give us an update on that in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because it's the #1 sports book in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. So download FanDuel right now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You will get up to, hear this number, $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I almost want to tank a bet, Jason, so that I can get $3,000 back. But, whatever. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. All of these parlays, anything, you can do it. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey, when you're the official partner, we can actually say Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. I'm not going to get in trouble at all because I can say it. Wow. Love all of that. All right, Jason, getting back into talking about these two guys in Carolina's class of 2023. three, at least in terms of high school commits. Carolina has Simeon Wilcher, who we've been talking about, and Zayden High. I'd love to just take a couple minutes, and if you would give us just an update on how they're both performing, what you're hearing and seeing, maybe areas they have grown this year, maybe areas they still need to grow. Let's start with Simeon Wilcher.
Yeah. So great senior season. He's playing with Mbako, who your fans will love to hate eventually. Next season, he'll be at Duke. And he did make the McDonald's All-American game. Oh, man.
Chip on the shoulder right there.
Right. So, this was his first year transferring to play with Simeon. And, those guys are meshing very well together. I think Simeon's averaging around 15 a game, had big games, is continuing to thrive as a playmaker, continuing to thrive with the ball in his hands. I'm so curious to see how they use him because they're going to have to use him. He's going to have to be on the court. We've had these conversations more and more. But he's really thriving. It's almost like, I hate to call him a point guard because he's so talented as a downhill scorer, from the perimeter, but just continue to thrive as a playmaker and a guy that will be able to be certainly interchangeable in the backcourt for the Tar Heels next season. But definitely meshing well with talent on his team. And that's something that, obviously he'll have to deal with at the next level.
Yes, indeed. Anything you're still looking to see from him would be like, man, I'd love to see Wilcher continue to grow in this aspect of his game.
He's one of the few guys. No, not really. A lot of his game is because, I really respect his approach and his mentality because he's a guy who really doesn't, he's not going to be on every interview. He's not like thirsty. He really is a head down, lunch pail work guy. So I don't tend to worry about those guys, but that list is short and it's one deep and it's Simeon Wilcher.
And that's the kind of person that Hubert Davis has said over and over again that I want in my locker room and on my team and around my guys. You love to hear that. Well, let's switch our attention to Zayden High, who is the less heralded of the two, but certainly a phenomenal basketball player in his own right and also having a nice senior season.
Yeah, loving him. He's thriving as a stretch forward AZ Compass who plays in the NIBC, which is by far and away the number one basketball league in the country. They play with Montverde, IMG. They're number 3 behind Montverde and IMG. So you'll see him on TV a lot. I think they're on TV this weekend, in the NIBC. So definitely check that out on ESPN Plus. But he's coming off a 28-14 game, thriving as a stretch forward, knocking down shots, scoring in the paint, finishing with both hands. So, when you're on a team with Mookie Cook, True Washington, Farrell Compton, those guys, and you are arguably the best player on your team, that's telling in and of itself. So his ascension is continuing to get steeper and steeper. And he's definitely going to be a piece that you guys are going to be able to use next season.
Yes, and as we've seen this year in Chapel Hill, the absence of as effective a stretch for as Carolina had last year in Brady Manek is something that is keeping the Tar Heels from reaching their ceiling. And so as Jalen Washington works more into that type of role, getting Zayden High in next year, that Coach Davis and the rest of the coaching staff are elated about adding him to the mix. With that said, is he someone that to you projects to be able to get, you don't imagine he'll be in the starting lineup from day one, but somebody that will be able to get 10 to 15 minutes a game in that stretch forward type role next year?
From an ability and talent standpoint, yes, but it's Hubert. So we got to see what is Hubert going to use him? You know what I'm saying? You got to be honest. Hubert, it takes him a little while to get he got trust issues. I don't know. I think Hubert has trust issues. So we'll see. But from a talent standpoint, knocking down the perimeter jump shot is the ultimate equalizer, and he does it really well. At his size, that is something that's always going to be a valuable asset, especially in you guys' offense. So I hope that he's at a 10 to 15 range because I think he'd be very productive with that type of time on the court.
Great stuff. Simeon Wilcher, Zayden High. We will keep our eyes on their high school season as it progresses. Coming up next, I want to talk about what I believe Carolina needs to do in the stretch run of the season, 10 more regular season games to get back to the places they were at the end of last year. What's it going to take? I'll get you that in just a second. I want to finish up today by building on what we talked about on yesterday's show, where we looked at kind of the shape of the ACC stretch run for the Tar Heels. They've got 10 games left, the final half of the schedule. What I've done is just kind of process through what does North Carolina need to do to reach the success that they did down the stretch last year. And I've come up with 5 things that I think are pivotal to their success to get to where they were last year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think some of these are. If you agree with me, disagree, extra things, share those in the comments, tweet at me, whatever it may be. So I'm going to give you these 5 things. First, though, we heard on Monday from Coach Davis that it sounds like RJ Davis is going to be available for Wednesday night's game against Pittsburgh. That is great news, although it sounds like he will have a black eye. That's just going to make him more intimidating, right? It'll be great. All right, here are the 5 things for me. Number 1, Carolina has to get healthy. It's just a fact. I mean, I know in any season, any team around the country has nicks and bruises and such, but Carolina has just dropped a lot of games this year. Now, part of the great news is that you cannot begin to underestimate how important it has been for the Tar Heels to have had this past week off. Remember, they played last Tuesday at Syracuse and then don't play again until tomorrow night, Wednesday, at home, another big thing against Pittsburgh. And so to have that heading into this final 10-game stretch is important for so many things, practice and getting stuff put together, but really getting healthy. Part of that's because there are no more breaks of this nature. 10 more games, 5 weeks straight of like midweek weekend. It goes Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Monday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Monday, Saturday. So 2 of those, you have that Saturday, Monday turnaround. So think of all here's just like a sampling of some of the health things. We just talked about RJ's eye and general body, right? That just got all banged up at Syracuse. Mondo's ankles and his shoulder. Puff Johnson's knee. Pete Nance's back. Leaky Black's been in a walking boot. So like all of this, hopefully the Tar Heels have been able to get some rest and recuperation and are ready to go for the stretch run. Because again, no more breaks. So getting healthy is number 1. Number 2 thing I think the Tar Heels need to do to reach last year's levels of success is role definition. We've been talking about this all season and even leading up to the season, but part of what really made the Tar Heels go down the stretch last year was in particular that starting 5 knew exactly what they needed to do to make the team successful. It took, several months into the season, November, December, and January to tinker and figure out what that was. But man, in late February and on, they really found their stride. It felt like RJ, Caleb, Leaky, Mondo, Brady, all 5 of them knew exactly what they needed to do, and they executed it perfectly. They were strong where each other was weak. They complemented each other. And I don't mean like I give you a compliment. I mean like in the way that a husband and wife complement, spelled differently, one another. And so part of what that is knowing what those roles are. And I know they're working on figuring that out so they can do that. And not just knowing it, but it's accepting it and then enacting it. They have to do all 3 of these things. Know what my role is. I have to accept my role, and then I have to execute that role. That's what's going to make this team go. That's, for example, what's making Kansas go. They are not the most talented team in the country, but that team knows and accepts its role. And I think Carolina can do that. I don't doubt that as a possibility, but they got to go out and do it. Number 3, what does Carolina have to do to be successful down the stretch? Caleb Love has to be Caleb Love. This is another thing we've talked about all season long. He's just not, like anytime North Carolina gets behind in a game, here's a good way to think about it. You always know the run's coming, right? At some point, the Tar Heels are going to make a push. It's just a matter of when it happens. I feel like the same thing is happening with Caleb this year. It's like Caleb is in there, and it's going to come out at some point. It's just a matter of when it happens and how long he sustains that. Now, I thought there were great signs in the game last week at Syracuse. I thought that was one of the most complete games he had this season. Some foul trouble curtailed it some in the first half, but he really did a nice job. Is that a sign of things to come? I sure hope so. But if the Tar Heels are going to reach their ceiling, he's got to be the best version of himself to match what's already happening. It can't just be RJ Davis and Armando Bacot as it's been for several weeks now, right? It's like, you're going to get high level production from one of, if not both of those guys. But you need to know that coming into any game, you have 3 dudes who can drop an efficient 20, not just drop 20, an efficient 20. That's important. Right? I'm not looking for you to drop 20 on 15 or 16 shots. I'm looking for you to drop 20 on 8, 9, 10 shots, right? Like, that's the efficiency we're looking for. So if Carolina can have those 3 guys, man, how much that can do that, how much more difficult does that make the opposition scouting report game in and game out? Carolina has to have Caleb Love being Caleb Love. Number 4, what does Carolina need to do to reach their heights? The defense has to lock in. North Carolina's defense has had some good moments this season. They've had other moments that have been less good. As you look at their defensive efficiency at KenPom, they've sat outside the top 50 a lot of the season. And in fact, several weeks of a stretch here, they've been in the 60s. Here's the good news. Last game or two, they've moved into the 50s, and as of the time of this recording, they are 53rd in defensive efficiency in the nation. So here's what's interesting. This defense continues to creep up, and it's got to keep doing so for Carolina to get where they want to get. Part of that is that they're just not hitting shots at the same level as last year. The offense is good, but it itself ranks outside the top 20 in offensive efficiency nationally. And so to balance that, either the offense has to really pick up or the defense keeps growing. Now, I'm not saying they got to be top 10 good in defensive efficiency, but if they could even get into the 30s, and that's still a climb, that's 13 spots from where they're at right now, that could make Carolina do what they need to do. And so a lot of that is cohesion as a defensive unit. A lot of that is individual defensive efforts, but playing together as one. I've got to see more of that. And again, they can do it. I mean, plays like we just talked about RJ's injury. Part of that is him making an individual effort to sacrifice his body for the good of the team. If you get more and more of that, that's great. And you've got the pieces. It's not just Leaky. You've got Seth Trimble. You've got Puff Johnson, guys who can be great defenders. Just want to see it continue to grow. And then the 5th thing, someone's got to surprise us. I feel like you really know what you've got with, as we said a little bit ago, RJ, Caleb, when he's Caleb, and Armando from an offensive standpoint. You also know what you're getting with Leaky more often than not from a defensive standpoint. And you get the bonus of his offense here and there and everywhere, and more often than normal this year. But outside of those 4, who's it going to be? Last year, you had the 4 scorers in Leaky. You knew that in any game, kind of similar to what we said a minute ago with Caleb, you knew in any game that RJ, Caleb, Armando, or Brady could go off for 20. And that Leaky was going to just shut down whoever it was. Like he's going to have to do against Jamarius Burton on Wednesday night versus Pitt. You were not keeping all 4 of those guys out of the box score. That's not been the case this year. So who's it going to be? Who's going to join RJ, Caleb, and Mondo? Need that 4th score. Is it Pete? Hopefully it's Pete himself. Is it Jalen Washington? I think the pieces are there for him to be so good offensively and defensively, but talking about scoring, it's just like, is he ready this year from a game? Like, I'm back in game shape fully and can do that. Is it Puff Johnson? Is it Seth Trimble? Somebody's got to surprise us and just add something they haven't been yet. I want to see who that's going to be. That's the 5th thing I'm watching for Carolina to get back to last year's heights. I think they can do it. I believe that if you're watching or listening to the show, you feel the same. You think that this Tar Heels team can put it back together. Maybe you don't. Maybe you disagree with me, and that's fine because this is sports and this is what we do on podcasts and stuff. We talk about differences and things we agree and disagree with, but I legitimately think they can do it. They just have to. So once again, would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think Carolina needs to do to get to their highest possible ceiling? Well, that's it for today's show. Coming up tomorrow, Coach Pat Kilby joins me as we preview the Pittsburgh game. I want to get his thoughts on the closing stretch run for the Tar Heels this year as well. Would be honored if you would leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's one of the great ways to help this show continue to grow. If you've not done that, it would mean so much to me and the show. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the show. We're getting so close to 5,000 on YouTube, and leave comments. You can also email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you there. For your second listen, check out Locked On Basketball, where myself and Andy Patton bring you the joy of college basketball 5 days a week. Honestly, what is better? Make sure you tune in on YouTube and anywhere else you get podcasts. Hey, really appreciate you hanging out with me on a Tuesday, talking Carolina sports. Always a great day to be a Tar Heel. You know it is. All right. Until tomorrow, I'll talk to you then. Peace.